broken entertainment. So today we're going to talk about something that is starting to do the rounds already, and I'm sure will continue to take off, and that is Kevin Feige has stated directly that Doctor Strange was cut from Wanda Vision because he is white and male. So a lot of people are going to talk about race, and they're going to go into this and that about, diversity and so on, but I really want to talk about the problem with this whole thing that is central to the mistakes that Disney and increasingly Marvel are making. And it's not about the color of Doctor Strange's skin, it's about the way they're making these. I actually think that not having Doctor Strange involved in WandaVision is fine. I think the initial reason that he states, because he gives two, the initial reason that he states, I think, actually makes sense from a narrative perspective. However, they go into the skin and gender shortly thereafter. So let's go ahead and go into the article, and I'll kind of get into what I'm talking about here. So, this is it, bounding into comics. Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige confirmed that Doctor Strange was cut from the recent Disney Plus season of WandaVision because he is white and male. According to MovieWeb, Feige spoke with Brian Hyatt for Rolling Stone about WandaVision and Marvel Studios' initial plans to include Doctor Strange in the show. Apparently, Doctor Strange was supposed to be communicating with Wanda via the commercials that were seen throughout the show, like the Toastmate scene in Episode 1 and the Strucker Watch scene in Episode 2. However, Strange was cut from the show, and Feige explained why. He stated, "Some people might say, oh, it would have been cool to see Doctor Strange, but it would have taken away from Wanda." Now let's stop there. This first statement makes some narrative sense. If you look at it from an unbiased writer's perspective, this makes some amount of sense. You want the show to be focused on the character of Wanda. You don't want the show to be focused on somebody else. Doctor Strange is a nice tie-in, and it's a good tie-in for the movie he has coming up, in which Wanda has a part. But if you want your show to really focus on this character of Wanda and making her more popular and bringing in a bigger audience and really focus your narrative in her direction, Doctor Strange can be a distraction. That's not something you want to necessarily ignore moving forward, but in your first season, yeah, you might want to have her focused on entirely, her and Vision. And Monica Rambeau. Monica Rambeau coming in doesn't detract because Monica Rambeau, yes, she's going to be in a movie. Yes, she's probably eventually going to be Captain Marvel. But she's not the big presence that Doctor Strange is. She's a side presence, and it works out. However, they don't leave it at that, and that's not really why they made their decision. And that's the problem. That is the problem with storytelling in entertainment right now. They don't make decisions for narrative reasons. They make them for political ones and ideological ones. He goes on. We didn't want the end of the show to be commoditized to go to the next movie. Stop. That's an excuse. Every time they make a movie, the end of the movie commoditizes to the next movie. That's what those after credit scenes are. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with commoditizing, quote unquote, the end of season 1 of WandaVision to push us into the Doctor Strange movie from the perspective of the character of Wanda. I think that would have worked very well. So there's no reason. This whole statement doesn't work. Because of course you want to take the WandaVision fan base and move them to Doctor Strange's movie where Wanda's going to take part. Obviously. So that doesn't hold any water. Then he says, here's the white guy. Let me show you how power works. This is where people are going to talk about race. The problem is that this isn't, it is a racial decision. But the problem is deeper. The problem is it's really an ideological decision. Okay? Disney, and through extension Marvel, have a very stated, very direct, very out in the open focus on diversity. And when I say diversity, I don't mean, hey, we have Monica Rambeau, she's a good character, we're going to put her out there. Hey, we have these other characters, they're good characters, we're going to put them out there. It's, we're going to reskin some people, we're going to regender some people, we're going to make our decisions based on what checklists we have hit. And that's where you lose the narrative focus. That's where your decision making becomes ideological, and it hurts the final product. Because you're not making decisions based on good writing and good storytelling anymore. You're now making them based on a checklist. And, we don't want this to look bad with the wrong, because that's what this statement's about. They're afraid of the Twitter people who would see this and go, oh, you're saying that the real power lies with a white male. Well, you cannot make narrative decisions. You cannot make storytelling decisions from a place of fear. You have to make the storytelling decisions that make the story good. Those are the decisions you need to make. Everything else doesn't matter. And when you start making those decisions on fear or ideology or a combination of the two, you lose the soul of your story. Because it's no longer about what makes a good story. It's now about what makes good appeasement. It's now about what gets your ideology across, which makes your story watered down until it's basically just propaganda. There's nothing wrong with this narrative decision going back to their first point of, hey, we wanted this to be focused on Wanda. We don't really want to detract from that character in this particular season of the show. That's a fine narrative decision. It makes sense. Everything else they have said is either an excuse or ideologically driven. And that's the problem now, right? Every time... Remember the Endgame scene? The now infamous girl power scene where all the female heroes just materialize out of nowhere and walk slowly towards the bad guy? And so many people, including just quote-unquote normies, have been like, oh my god, that's cringy. That's a narrative decision made based on ideology. And that's what this is. There are valid reasons not to put Doctor Strange in the show. But they're not talking about those. They made this decision for ideological reasons. Or they made this decision and they're trying to push the ideological reason behind it to virtue signal to certain people. Either way is just as bad. But we know, based on mounting evidence, that Disney just wants to make ideological decisions. They're all about ideology now. At every level. And unfortunately, that's where you lose your story. People go, how come Disney has lost its soul? They're putting out soulless remakes of movies they did as live action, and they took the heart out of Mulan and they took the heart out of The Lion King, and how come Aladdin is this way? And it's because they've lost the ability to make a narrative decision based on the needs of a story. All they have left is their ideology. It has cored the company out from the inside. Not only was Strange cut from Wanda Vision, but apparently meant they had to rewrite Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness too. There you go. We have moved from narrative decisions made for storytelling purposes to new decisions made based on ideology, and it has already forced them to go and change the script of a movie. Why? There is no valid narrative reason you would have to go and change the script for Doctor Strange 2 because you didn't include him in Wanda Vision, unless, of course, you had already made that decision at the beginning to include him and wrote your script accordingly, and then later made the decision based on ideology, forcing you to change everything. Feige described their creative process, a wonderful combination of very, very dedicated coordination, chaos magic. Disney has absolutely just lost itself. And they're not the only ones. Much of our entertainment has lost itself. It's become so focused on ideology. Not only have they forgotten how to do subtext and allegory, they've gone so far past knowing how to do that, they're now in the realm of rewriting scripts and making decisions on the narrative based solely on ideological reasons. And once you do that, you have no story. You cannot, no classic, no lasting, no good story exists in which they made decisions purely for ideological reasons. And that's where we are right now. And that's why Mortal Kombat is doing so well, and Demon Slayer is doing so well, and Godzilla vs. Kong is still doing well, because they just made narrative decisions for narrative reasons. And they're entertaining. They don't lecture anybody. They're not ideologically driven. So let me know what you think of this decision. Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell for notifications. And I will see you next time.